I'm Christian Chiller. Welcome to my podcast, an enthusiastic ramble through whatever has taken my interest the past week or so. Expect technology, games, history, travel, geekery, and as always, much, much more. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to my podcast, Chiller Squeaks, with me, Christian Chiller. A short news and links roundup before I get stuck into the main interview this episode, which is with Sefi Carmel of Spheretrax, a new modern look at music licensing specifically for TV, film, games, otherwise known as synchronizations. That's coming up. But to begin with, let's start with a few interesting links. I've been messing around a lot more with music and music technology over the past few weeks. Some of this will make itself known in some videos and other things quite soon. So actually, the links this week are quite dominated by music and music technology, but there's a few others from my more traditional developer tech angle first. And the first is revisiting the Terraform discussion from last week. Unsurprisingly, HashiCorp's change to the licensing and their business model caused an open source fork of Terraform called OpenTF. I guess we will see how compatible it remains with mainline Terraform moving forward. There's also been other news recently around Red Hat and how they haven't always stuck to that backward compatibility. I'm actually going to be attending Open Source Summit in a few weeks in Bilbao, and that is the question I'm going to ask a lot of the people I speak with, actually. What is, with all these changes recently, what is the true current state of open source? I'm interested to get some opinions from the people there, some of who will work for some of those companies and some of those who won't. But anyway, back to HashiCorp and Terraform. This is a post from ShiftMag talking a little bit more in detail about those license changes and the OpenTF foundation. And I don't mean that in terms of a foundation. I mean that in terms of its beginning. Maybe I should have picked a better word. There we go. Anyway, it's too late now. And its own manifesto and who's behind it and why it happened. And some of their reason for doing this is because they cite that the new license that HashiCorp has chosen is quite unclear about who they consider competitors and what they consider competitive projects, which I think is often something that companies will do in these licenses, but it means that it almost gives them the right to sort of make their mind up as they want, which is not very open in terms of community. Specifically, they mention a bit of a lack of communication and clarity around these concerns as well. And there is a quote inside the article saying that basically if a CTO or if a technology decision maker inside of a company decides to use Terraform, could they consider them a competitor in the future? I mean, I kind of get the splitting hairs here and that the lack of communication and clarity is a bad thing. But a lot of companies use Terraform for a lot of things that have nothing to do with Terraform. So I guess the concern is more will they start trying to charge for commercial licenses of Terraform or something like that, maybe, more than a more general, we're running an e-commerce business, so we can claim that as a commercial usage of Terraform, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's maybe the problem. It's unlikely, but it could be the case. It could be an excuse for HashiCorp to leverage financial burden on competitors, even though it's not a direct product that Terraform is being used for. That sort of thing is where it could get interesting. And then likewise, I mean, there's an argument of how many of these commercial products have open source contributions from outside of the main company. But of course, it's going to put off those drive-by open source developers wanting to contribute, because what are they just contributing to a business's bottom line now if they contribute to Terraform? So we'll see where OpenTF goes. Maybe I will try and get an interview with some of the people behind it, and we could dig a little bit more detail into what they're doing and why. Similar news on everything changing. This is an article on The Verge called End of the Google-verse. And I think we have definitely seen an increased amount of people using generative AI chatbot assistants to ask questions and get answers to things. There has been a slight decrease in that. I'd also be interested in seeing the actual numbers. I don't know if it's possible to compare them. How much has this affected Google, DuckDuckGo, etc.? I'm actually a DuckDuckGo user, and sometimes I wonder if there's something hidden behind these numbers as well. Is it maybe there's been a general switch from Google as a kind of ad-supported source of information more than just everyone is moving to not using search engines at all? Hard to say. Again, that could be an interesting conversation to have with the people behind companies like DuckDuckGo. Don't know. But it's interesting, though, because I hear so many times when people talking about using things like ChatGPT as a source of information, you should always check it. You should always double check it. But I wonder how many people really do. I think we can see there's been many examples in the past of people taking the word of Wikipedia or the word of writing on Wikipedia at face value and at trust, and not questioning it and not checking it. So why is it likely to be any different with something like ChatGPT that actually sounds very authoritative? So it's hard to not say no to it sometimes, and especially when everyone's in a hurry, et cetera, et cetera. The interesting argument this article makes by going through a history of the company itself, Google/Alphabet, is that maybe I don't know that they shot themselves in the foot, but as always with a first mover, they're not the first mover in search, but the first mover in this kind of advancement of search. They made everyone conform to certain rules for SEO and PageRank, so you would get featured in Google. They would endlessly change these rules and not really make it clear as to what was changing and why. And you had to endlessly keep up with this. And that maybe people got sick of this. And the combination of this constant change plus now a new way of finding information, maybe it was a perfect combination that has led to this rejection of Google as an authoritative entity now. But of course, the interesting thing is, aside from AdSense, which is basically what is behind Google Search, and maybe Google Cloud, I'm not really sure how much of a profit that makes. It's how Google makes most of its money. So if it starts to fail, what will become of projects like Android? Definitely. But others as well, Workspace, Gmail, and all these tools that many people rely on for free or for minimal cost. Will they have to be stepped up? Will they just go completely? Especially something like Android, where really it funds itself by feeding into that knowledge machine. And it's interesting to see the same day I record this is not featured as an article roundup, but the same day I record this, Google Workspace has added a lot of new generative AI features that were all shown at I/O, covering this use of these tools inside some of those. So I sometimes wonder if Google is acknowledging this and knows this and is using this as a time to start switching a lot of its priorities in a similar way that Apple has when it's been switching a lot of its revenue generation into services. And I wonder if Google is trying to do the same. Is that by it knows that maybe the time of search as its moneymaker is slowly coming to an end, and it's reinvesting into other places it makes some money to try and make more money. And interestingly, in some ways, it'll make it a more transparent business. If you make money out of selling workplace services, it's a lot more transparent than mining data from from search in some respects. So it could make the company better in the long run, but that is all conjecture, of course. And as always, as I say so many times, we shall see. And if you have any thoughts on anything I've covered so far or also cover later, then please do get in touch on christianschiller.com. The site has been undertaking a lot of content updates and will have a new reskinning very, very soon. But on the homepage there, you can find my contact details. Always great to hear from you. And if you read or listen to this on Substack, you can also just jump in the comments there and let me know your thoughts. Okay, now I promised a lot of music content. Here it comes via the power of technology. These are both on Music Radar, which is a magazine I've started reading recently on kind of music technology. I think I've mentioned a couple of times I used to be, like many others of my age, an Amiga fan. And I used to use this very obscure music program called Octamed. And I sort of reacquainted myself with it recently because I found a bunch of old music files. Most of them were in GarageBand and Cubase, and I was able to reuse them. But I had a few in there from this program, Octamed, which is a program on the Amiga. And I was wondering, if I really want to, how can I listen to these again? I found someone made a Windows fork at a certain time. It's also still pretty old, so that might give me an opportunity, a window, shall we say, to resurrect some of these tracks somehow. But then interestingly, Octamed had a few users. It was quite popular, but one of the most famous users was Calvin Harris, who recorded a lot of his earlier stuff with it. And there's actually an interview with him in Music Radar talking about it. So I feel like sometimes I mention this program quite often, and very few people have ever heard of it. Actually, I've recorded an interview, it will come out on the podcast soon, with one other person who does remember it. But Calvin Harris was one of the main famous people. So often I think, not that I think, did I make this up? I could find it on Wikipedia and other websites, but was I the only person who used it apart from Calvin Harris? And sometimes just seeing this in print, as it were, is reassuring to me that I wasn't the only one. So, and he reminisces about it. It was, are you ready for this, kids? It allowed you to do a whopping 8 tracks of music when the physical hardware limit was 4. Which in those days was incredible. Now it was like nothing, but in those days it was frankly incredible. 8 whole tracks. Whew, wow. The stuff I made. Well, I'll dig it out soon and remind myself probably how bad it sounded. But anyway, it's nice to know that other people enjoyed it too. Taking a slightly different angle here, this is from the CTM magazine. The CTM is a music festival here in Berlin. This is actually something from a little while back. A well-tempered history of noise. And this is something that attracted my attention because I've been talking to, strangely, a bunch of musicians from Jordan recently at a music producers meetup here. And a quick music lesson, most Western music, most sort of Western pop and rock music that you probably know, love, or loathe, is formed around a scales of 12 notes. I won't go into any details of those, but you have whole notes and you have semitones, basically notes between notes. But in a lot of other music in the world, especially in India and the Arabic world, there are also quarter notes, notes between those notes themselves. And some Western musicians will experiment with these. And of course, if you're playing like analog stringed instruments and things, you can kind of make them in passing, but they're not formally there on the instrument. And talking to these people from Jordan, they're telling me this is quite common on their instruments. And also how they, with modern synthesizers, which conform to the kind of Western ideals of music, there are devices that let you form these notes, which is kind of interesting. And this article is basically about that. But looking at it from the perspective of how, you know, a Western pair of ears may consider some of that music as noise, but also vice versa. And what is noise? I often think about this when we think about distortion on heavy metal or heavy rock or punk music. This was an intentional destruction of sound back when it sort of came about in the 60s and 70s, and discordant music and all this sort of stuff. And so this article was really interesting in looking at that from different perspectives. And it's something that really interests me when it comes into the general area of artificial intelligence of music. Music can be quite formulaic, but often a lot of music that is popular goes against those formulas. And it doesn't make sense And I often wonder how an artificial intelligence could generate that kind of music that mathematically, formulaically doesn't work, but to a human, a certain human, it does. And this is something that really fascinates me as well, because I would imagine that a lot of the music tools that can generate music at the moment have been trained on probably Western music. So trying to get them to generate these sorts of sounds will probably be a challenge. And yeah, I've been trying to investigate how I can explore some of these scales that would be possible, but I obviously don't have instruments that can play them either. So, I'm in a good city to experiment with it, but I'm interested to dig more into it. And this was a great in-depth look at the kind of cultural as well as technical aspects of some of that. And then finally, back to Music Radar. This is an infamous story that was much dug up again when Charlie Watts on the Rolling Stones died, when he punched Mick Jagger in the face. And there's a wonderful photo in this article. I only bring it up mostly because I've been thinking about Charlie Watts a lot because I've been teaching drums recently, and I always use him as an example of someone who did a lot with very little, especially when the conversation from the students comes up with modern drum kits. Like, do you need all of this? And I often use him as an example of saying, no, he played gigantic stadiums with a very small drum kit and did a lot with it. But also, I've been listening to a podcast recently that is covering some anecdotes from one of their tours and then this kind of thing. So it was just in my feed and I couldn't resist taking that trip down memory lane again. He was an interesting person in actually a more interesting band than I realize sometimes, reading and listening around them. So if that interests you at all, take a look. This episode is brought to you literally by Zencastr, an all-in-one platform for creating, sharing, and getting analytics and monetizing your podcast. I am using it to create this show, from getting the guests to join me, to distribution, to editing, to tagging, all sorts of things. If you are interested in finding out more, then head on over to zencastr.com/pricing and use my discount code Chinchilla Squeaks, all one word, for 30% off your first month on a paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences that I do for all your podcasting and content needs. It is time to share your story. There was a reason I mixed in so much music technology into this episode, and that is now because I have my interview with Sefi from Spheretrax. Today I'm joined by Sefi Carmel of Spheretrax. I don't actually know how I first found Spheretrax because it was already on my list of links to look at, and then someone else told me about it. But what is Spheretrax? What are you trying to do?
Hi, Chris. So Spheretrax is a carefully curated gallery of songs and soundtracks. It's a licensing platform. And it's designed to solve a few problems that I came across and became aware of in the way that music is delivered for use in media, i.e., music for film or advertising or trailers or games. So we connect. Spheretrax connects creators from all over the world. Songwriters, bands, DJs, producers, with, on the one hand, our suppliers of music, with our clients, which are filmmakers, ad agencies, games designers, and it does it in a way that has a few really unique USPs that I'll tell you about in a minute. But that, in a nutshell, is what Spheretrax does.
Okay, what brought you personally? You mentioned it a little bit, but what took you to turning it into a product and a company?
Well, I've been working in the space of kind of changing hats between composition, sound design, and mixing for films and advertising and games for the past 37 years, he says, showing his age. And along that time, I've seen people really struggle with trying to find music for tracks. On the one hand, I've seen, my friends from from ad agencies or my friends that are video editors or directors really struggle to find music for projects they were looking for. And on the other hand, I've seen my composer friends struggle to get paid on time, struggle to get paid adequately, struggle to understand, have visibility and transparency on what they are due in the next quarter for their music being used and synced in various media applications. So I thought that it would be really great to create a product that alleviates those woes.
Yeah. And so it's a combination of things. I messed around a little bit with it earlier. So the main sort of interface you end up at for a consumer of the platform, I guess, is like you can upload videos, you drag them on, and then I think, as far as I understand, and this is some of the details I wanted to check into, you can then kind of add music files over the video to see what fits. Is that
exactly?
Yeah.
And the idea that you can, if you're a creative making a video, that you can drag and drop your video in and see how your video works with our music is a unique one. Nobody else does that. So it's a very powerful tool for people that are making content to see. They can actually edit their video on the platform as well, and they can work collaboratively with other creators. So this is very much, a post-COVID product where we're seeing people working more and more remotely and working in teams from different locations. So it's built to accommodate that, where people can collaborate Google Docs style, but they're in different continents.
And that's one thing I can see. Like, you can comment on the timeline and things like that.
Yes, yeah, you can say, I like this bit, I don't like this bit.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
But also one of the things that is kind of inherent to the platform is that I've been listening for all those decades to how people describe music. And one of the things that really stands out is that people describe music in emotional terms or in associative terms. They don't describe them in musical terms usually, and they don't describe them in music in technical terms either. So you'll sit with a client and you'll offer them a track, say, what do you think of this for your orange juice commercial? And they'll say, yeah, but I need something. It's good, but I need something a little happier. Yeah. And what does that mean? Well, on Spheretrax you can dial up a happiness fader.
Yeah, I can see
you
this.
You can choose moods and emotions and you can say, I want something happier, and it will actually bring you a track that is happier. There is also an AI module where you can type in, I need a track for an orange juice commercial, and it will suggest something that's uplifting and happy and fun. Or you can say, I want a track for a documentary about the Holocaust, and it will suggest stuff that's pretty grim.
And this is I can see I didn't quite pick up on the sliders for the moods. I thought it was just playlists earlier, and now I see the big kind of slider handle. I realize what you mean. And then the song listing changes ever so slightly as I go. And is the assistant box, is that the kind of smarter search?
Yeah, that's the AI assistant. We're kind of avoiding those two letters AI on the
for sure.
user interface, because at the moment there's a bit of a fear debate going on. So it's important to emphasize that the AI is assistive AI that helps you choose between tracks that we have on our platform that were created by humans. It's not generative AI. None of the music is created by Skynet.
And that actually is interesting. When I added in the search term, the sliders change as well, sort of.
Yes.
Relatively speaking to what it thought. And I put music for rain, and the results I got were ambient, meditative, calm, peaceful. That's mostly what you think of as rain if you're not in it.
Yes.
And I just wondered on the AI side, there was just something I was wondering that I couldn't quite figure out earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If I add a music track over top of a video, does it manipulate the video in any way, or is it just
No,
playing it back? Okay.
no, it's just playing it back.
Sometimes you get that trickery in the brain, don't you, where you think it's happening, but you can never quite sure if it is actually changing or not.
No, well, it's a very, very well-known experiment where
Yeah.
people were played, you know, two same video with two pieces of music,
Yeah.
and they perceived it completely differently. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's come to the licensing side. I sort of went through the steps a little bit. I didn't really kind of check out because I didn't necessarily want to actually license anything. How does that work from the creative side? Like that, you have no sort of self-service creator feature at the moment, as far as I can tell. It's all curated. And do you do individual deals with all the artists, or is there a standard model that you're doing with the licensing?
We do a deal with our artists that is the best deal out there because
Yeah.
we as a composer myself and other composers on the team that put Spheretrax together. A notable one is Isaac Short, the COO of Spheretrax. He's also a very talented composer. It was important to us to build to build Spheretrax around a set of values where it is very composer centric. There are
Yeah.
plenty of what I call the big bad wolves of the music industry that will give composers a shit deal and say take it or leave it. And it was important for us to give composers a very composer friendly deal. So the composers get offered a deal where they get to hold on to the majority of any income goes to the
Mm,
composer.
mm,
So it could be, for instance, 55%. If there's a sync deal, it could be 55% of the sync goes to the composer and 60% of the publishing. I mean, it does have some parameters of that it varies, and we offer different deals according to composers' different profile. So if they're well established and have
yeah.
are more recognized, they'll get a bit of a better deal. But even a completely unknown composer will get a deal that still gives them the majority of the income. And we've had 48,000 tracks submitted so far to the
Okay.
platform
Okay.
from all over the world, and we've accepted 5,000 onto the platform. So we're being quite picky.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's about 10% of
Yeah.
what we have been submitted.
So, in theory, in some respects, it's almost a little bit like a modern, which doesn't take much, to be honest with you, a modern, smarter publisher in some respects.
Well, it is. It is.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
we absolutely we become the publishers for these artists, and many of them are artists that are from obviously the usual places that you'd expect, like Europe and Northern Europe and North America, but there are also many from places that really surprised us, like Mongolia and Fiji and Virgin Islands and the Middle East and Japan and Africa. And so it's really kind of very much an equalizer and a playing field leveler in that respect.
Yeah. And how long has the platform been around?
Well, the platform launched, soft launched on May the 4th,
Okay.
Star Wars Day. So it's been around for not very long at all. It's been around for a little more than 2 months. Very early days, but um, things are happening. We have over 600 people registered as registered users that are, you know, going onto the platform searching for music, and some of the emails of those people are, emails of like at Netflix or at BBC or at Disney, and so we're seeing some traction in that respect. And we've also had some early placements, and
Okay.
we've had one of our composers place a track. We've placed a track for one of our composers on a um, cinema commercial that we mixed. about 2 weeks ago, just in time for the Barbie premiere. It was a cinema commercial for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the West End show that was showing just before the Barbie premiere.
I was just thinking, so this is very much I think it's almost like a sort of testing and auditioning and experimenting platform. Are you thinking of offering any features moving forward to let people take that further? So it's like, yeah, I really like this, but this is a web-based platform. I'd like to move this into DaVinci or Final Cut or Logic or something like that. Are you thinking of offering a way to sort of take what they started into professional quote unquote tools?
Absolutely. You can you can download one of the things that we haven't mentioned is the fact that Spheretrax is the only licensing platform to license music in Dolby Atmos. So you can download an ADM Atmos track which has all the stems of the track. You can download that into whatever, Pro Tools, Logic, DaVinci, Premiere, and you can create your own remix there, edit it, and
yeah, I can see that now actually. Yeah, and we didn't really cover how does it look from the. I mean, they're both creators, but from the from the video creators side. When it's licensed, is it licensed like a one-off, like when you buy stock art or something, or is it licensed per play, or are there choices, or is it just one licensing model?
Yeah, so if you go to the licensing page, it asks you what your usage is. So you can, it says, okay, what do we need this for? Do you need this for an ad? Okay, so it's what ad, TV or online? And then you say, I need this for a TV ad for 6 months for the UK. And I need the entire track, and you select what format you want it in, stereo, surround, or Atmos, and it gives you a price.
Yeah, I've been trying to, for some reason I seem to get stuck at the checkout at the moment,
because maybe you haven't selected all the options on the, so if you go on your screen, you select what it is and then how long for.
Okay, I get it. So then this amount I'm seeing is a one-off?
Yes, so this amount is a one-off for that usage. We're about to launch a subscription model as well, where it's like, all you can eat for various usages. So if you're a production company that just does online, you'll buy a subscription that covers you for that. If you do TV, you'll buy a subscription that covers you for that, etc.
I can see it also changes based on the format. Just dropping from surround to stereo, I saved half.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And are you thinking of having sort of self-service for musicians, or you don't really want to go into that territory and it becomes a bit too much like SoundCloud or something, I guess?
No. A very important element here is the curation. We don't want it to be self-served. We want it to be everything on there is, super high quality, vetted for its musical attributes as well as technical quality, and so we definitely don't want to go down the self-serve route.
Okay, if I may ask, and feel free to not answer this question if it gives away too much, but how do you match the music to the things that people look for? Is it a kind of manual tagging, or is it AI models, or somewhere between the two? Or
well, at the moment it's a team of 11 very talented guys that are all MA level music MA graduates from Royal College of Music, Goldsmiths, Guildford, etc. We are training an AI module in the background. When the data set becomes big enough and and it becomes reliable enough, it will be more AI assisted. But at the moment, it's 11 talented guys sitting and tagging.
Okay. It seems to. Well, I didn't listen to the ones that I got, but it seemed pretty. Seemed pretty good so far. And then I can see the one other aspect you have is this. Actually, no. Let's talk about the collaboration. I noticed I can add comments and things like that. And then if I started to share with other people, we could have some back and forth. And is there, I think I saw there's an ability to, viewer, editor, admin, etc., etc. So
Yeah, you can send a link. You can send either a collaborative window to your teammate where they can collaborate, or you can send just a link of the video with the music to a client, so kind of client approval type things.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So it's relatively early days, but what's planned for next? I can see a community link that doesn't seem to do anything right now. Maybe that's one thing that's on the plan. But
What we are the community aspect of it, I think, is very exciting
okay.
to me. I think the fact that a lot of musicians' work today is very insular. People are sitting, in a room creating music, and I think the ability to interact as a community with like-minded individuals and share music, like stuff that other people are doing, kind of is interesting. So at the moment we have 140 composers and creators on the composer side or songwriter side, which is it's quite a small community as online communities go. But on the other hand, it's quite a large community in terms of the musical force behind it. So the one of the plans is to build up that community. Another plan is to add sound effects and sound design capabilities onto the platform as well. But the main goal at the moment is our next funding round and kind of going harder on the marketing. Our first funding round of £350,000 we raised to help us build the platform and all of the initial outgoings of building the initial team and setting it all up. But there is a long way to go, and there is a lot still to be done. We'd like to have a bigger team. We'd like to be able to grow all aspects of the business. I mean, one of the aspects that is sort of tied to the community side of it is a magazine that we've started putting out weekly, which kind of features artists in the community, and that all that thing will require more people, more salaries. Hence our next raise of funds.
Have you struggled with that at all? I mean, I wonder if there's a little bit of a misunderstanding around funders of what you have. They think of music and they think of people just sort of as you say, in their bedrooms making music and uploading it to Bandcamp or SoundCloud, which is sort of low profit most of the time. And then you have people who do soundtracks and advertising music and things like that, which can be more reliable. Did you ever struggle to get people to understand kind of what the market is here? Because I would imagine it's a market that not so many people know about, or are you lucky enough to find people who understood it?
You mean in terms of investors?
Yeah.
Well, I think that the people that invested in it, got it and liked the idea. One of our investors is a company from the Netherlands that invested £100,000 into Spheretrax that are in this space. They deal with managing rights for films and music, and so they get it. They see the potential. But I think that what we're seeing from ad agencies that we're presenting this to and digital agencies, that people love it, people get it, and people say this will save us so much time.
Actually, on that kind of whole wider ecosystem, and the UK is pretty good with this because I'm still registered with collection societies in the UK, so I kind of know what they're like. Are you thinking, you also connect up with things like the rights societies, or are you sort of trying to bypass that traditional system completely?
No, we're not at all, because I think that bypassing PROs disenfranchises composers. I think that so there is to everything that we do. There is a sync element that the client pays a sync fee when they sync, and then there's residuals that are paid for the usage to the PRO, and so we're believers in that old school system. It could be improved, of course. It could be the collections could be more accurate and by the PROs, but that's a different conversation.
No, it is. It's funny because I went back for the first time in quite some time. I was registering some new music with the PPL because previously I always had a publisher that did it for me, which I don't have anymore. So I was like, there's a lot of paperwork I need to fill in here. But which for those of the uninitiated, just to basically get a track number that identifies a track as a track. Because the last time I really did it was when you were literally releasing things, not just putting them out on services. But also it's funny, we actually have in Berlin, there's the ICE that does a lot of the central kind of gathering of information for a lot of the European collection societies. It's kind of strange that they're based here. We actually have a few friends who work for them. So, you have some drinks with them and you realize it's still people doing a lot of it, trying to figure out the details and things like that.
Absolutely. We work closely with ICE.
Yeah, it's kind of, they're not too far from where I am. So, it's funny because I see it from both sides. I still get paid royalties for stuff I did like years ago, but then I also hear from friends who are doing the side for the collection as well. This is kind of interesting. Okay, cool. And maybe one final thing, because I don't know, it didn't immediately grab me as being what it was going to be about. Like, where'd the name come from?
Spheretrax. Well, immersive formats. So atmosphere, sphere.
Yeah. Fair enough. And you mentioned you do composing too. Where might have we heard some of your work, or where can we hear some of your work apart from Spheretrax, of course?
Well, of course, I was about to plug Spheretrax. It's all there, and but I recently finished composing music for a feature film that is not out yet, but will be out soon, called Rebel Princess. That's an animation feature. Very female empowering and culturally diverse story. With that, because it's culturally diverse, it was really fun to record because it was musicians from, Middle Eastern musicians, African musicians, as well as an orchestra. There's also many TV programs that I did for National Geographic, for BBC. I mean, the BBC there was a series called Magic. Then there was a series called Ecstasies on National Geographic, and a series called Weird Science on Discovery.
Okay.
And feature films other than there's Skin Traffic with Michael Rourke and Mickey Rourke and Daryl Hannah and Eric Roberts, and Instant Death with Lou Ferrigno.
I'll have to do and dig them out. Instant Death sounds entertaining.
It kind of does what it says on the tin. It's Lou Ferrigno beating people up, being very monosyllabic about it.
Well, maybe not so much. Anyway, okay. Maybe I'll just find the soundtrack. Cool. All right. Well, Sefi, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, and have a great day. See you on Spheretrax.
And that was my interview with Sefi. A couple of new things for me. I'm about to actually record a whole bunch of intro, sort of the messages you will hear in podcasts. That's the repeating how to support me and stuff like that. I'm about to overhaul all that very soon. I was going to try and get it in for this episode, but I think I want to script it a bit more. So until then, you could still just head over to christianchiller.com and find all those ways to support what I'm doing. And there'll be a few more coming up probably for the next episode. But on top of all that, a few things from me over on Medium. You will find a couple of other blog posts from me. One covering Aeon Timeline, a tool I use for timelining stories, especially my fiction stories. And another one on my updates on how I now do note-taking and knowledge management, looking at Margin Note, Raindrop, and Obsidian, which I have become something of a convert to. So you can find all of those there. And I have a lot more in the works. On the video front, I have a video on my YouTube channel, which is a reproduction of my dynamic docs talk from API the Docs earlier this year, where I dig into, at a conceptual level, some of the concepts I've been thinking around dynamic documentation. And very soon, probably a day or so after this releases, I will have a video on a wonderful tool called Display Placer that lets you kind of arrange your screens if you're using macOS. So you can look forward to all of those. But most importantly, I have a collection of flash fiction out, paving the way for my novel release that is coming soon. It is called Small Gregarious Fiction. You can find more details on my website, chrischinchilla.com/books. But it's available on Amazon Kindle, Amazon Print on Demand, and also Drive Through Fiction, where you can also find an audio version of it if you want to listen to more of me rambling on. I'd appreciate if you buy a copy. I've made it very, very affordable. So head on over and pick a copy of that. Anyone reviews fiction out there wants a copy, let me know, and I can also get one to you. That's about it. There's going to be, yet again, some more things happening quite soon, but that's the main things for now. I have been Chris Chinchilla. This has been Chinchilla Squeaks, and as always, thank you very much for joining me, and take care, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show. Find out more about me at chrischinchilla.com, where you can find show notes, sign up for my newsletter, and find all of my writing, games, work, and video links. There's also details on how to get in touch with me. And if you want to get even closer to what I do, join my Discord server for behind-the-scenes discussions and helping me produce my shows and work.